Hi there, everybody. This is John Drew here from Elevated Planet, and today I am here with Linda Carden, author of this fantastic book, and we're going to talk about it because the new science of fitness is something that I think really unveils so much about the programming and conditioning that we've received in life, right? Is so misdirected. And my feeling is that what you've tapped into here is that we don't need that anymore. There's a completely new way of looking at it, and so much of it is connecting to our higher self. And anyway, Linda, I want you to do the talking rather than me.
You may have to
Welcome.
step in and guide as I can go on. But I will say, I love how you started that today, because it's like, how do you, there's, as you know, for me, there's so much, it's always coming in, as you know, at moment to moment, there's always more as we expand our awareness. But when I even go back to the book, the foundations are still very much a truth. I can go back and read it and say, yeah, that's exactly still what I would have said. Now it's more clarity on a lot of that, but it's so right. It's about the conditioning. And for me, especially about, I say our form field now. I don't really like to say body. The language today is challenging for me, and what we use, the language that I am so desiring, even with your help and the community's help, to rewrite our language again, that there's more expressive as we move into ourselves as energy, not solid. And especially this is the aspect of ourselves, right, that really needs to be looked at and say, how do we communicate with a deeper truth of who we are? That we're this beautiful consciousness in form and visibility, but this is the divinity itself, right? It holds
Mm,
all that is, because it's not separate from. And I think one of the things that I think that I see a lot, even for me and my perspective, the spiritual community still at times will often seem to refer to the body as separate, or you're not your body. Well, maybe you were not the concepts of our body that we were taught, but we're still this energy. We can't not be, because we're not separate from it. And I guess having a language that's more accurate to and more consistent is going to help people embrace the truth of who we are. And then, of course, you've got the practices that are absolutely necessary to feel it and to experience it, but we can assist with the proper dialogue instead of, and the proper language, I say more accurate, that so that we're assisting in this shift, right, to the
yes,
understanding of who we are.
yes, absolutely. And this is the thing. Having read through the book in large part, not completely finished it yet, but there is so much wisdom in it. I mean, I know you tap into a bunch of people, that are absolute luminaries and all this, but your own wisdom that you've got in there as well absolutely measures up. And to me, this thing is all iterative. The whole journey, and this is where it gets, I suppose, challenging for where depending where you are on your journey.
Hmm.
Because if you're
Yeah.
only just beginning this journey, understanding these concepts is quite a leap, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
And at the same time, I'm kind of looking at it now from being on this journey for a number of years, not decades like a lot of people have. But to me now, I just think, yeah, I'm just like reading every page that I read. I'm nodding my head, and I'm thinking, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
I get it, I feel it.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
I I do look forward to actually physically trying to express this stuff as opposed to just read through it because this connection, as you say, energy, we are all energy. Everything is energy.
Hmm.
The screen I'm looking at now is energy. The,
Yeah.
the the desk is energy. The book is energy. Everything is energy vibrating at a certain speed.
Yeah.
So to kind of break it down and think, yeah, we're not the solid forms that we think we are. We're
Yeah.
just energy. And another thing that really interests me as well is that this idea that we effectively have so much influence over what goes on here, but because we've got misaligned programming and conditioning, this is where a lot of the disease and everything else comes from because of that imbalance that is created as a result of that programming and conditioning. So, therefore, the word I'm looking for here is unlearning, right? We
Yes.
have to spend a lot of time unlearning in order to learn, because that is where we will trip ourselves up. If
Hmm.
we stick with the beliefs that we've been told, we won't get very far into this journey.
Yes.
And I believe that this time that we're going through now, a big part of what is happening is that unlearning is starting to begin and to unfold. So what do you
Yes.
think about that?
Yeah, I read, years ago, I was always a student of Life and Teachings of the Masters, as you know, of the Far East so for years. That was written, what, in, 1898, 1900s really. And one of the things there was about the whole breakdown, that we're on the course of the breakdown of all our institutions, and
Yes.
we know that, the religious, the educational, and we're seeing that now. It's so that series told everything that's happening now. It's why I love it. It's even goes to some things I say, I hear Greg Braden and say, oh, wait a second, I don't know if that's accurate. Turn to page 150 in volume 3, because it talks about the ganglion behind the heart as your subconscious mind. You know what I mean? It's like there are
Right.
things that are there already. And they say, we just discovered these ganglion, So there's a lot there. But as you said, some of that stuff, it came to me, it was like, oh my gosh, here's the truth. It just was
Mm.
inside. It resonated so much with me. So absolutely. I mean, John, it's mind boggling in a way to think that everything really that we have been told and taught about who we are, especially even us here in America, particularly, I think, is really in this journey now so not accurate to who we are. And
Mm.
so this deep conditioning is what we're looking now to, not that it wasn't designed that way, or whatever. I'm not saying, hey, maybe we chose this, probably did, but that it really is this beautiful journey of unlearning and really looking for the truth within ourselves, because it's all there.
Yes.
And I think that's really what's missing. That outer world, we hear that all the time, right? Your outer world is just a reflection of your inner world. Well, that is a very bold, beautiful statement, but it's very challenging when we're deeply embedded in separation. That
Yes.
table looks like a table, and that sun looks like it's, not me. But is that really a reflection of the sun inside of me? Is that really? Yes. It's
Mm.
all right in here. So where do you got to go?
Yeah,
You got to go in here.
you do, and
Yeah.
that's the entire point. And this is something that we keep coming back to time and again. The answers are always within,
Yes.
because of the if you think about the law of divine oneness, right? Everything is connected. We are all
Yes.
connected, and you talk about this a lot as well, as about we're all just part of a unified field of energy, right?
Yeah.
And
Holographic. That word is really, think about that. Holographic. Every single entity of our energy holds the truth of all of it. That's really a very profound understanding. You can go into yourself in any aspect of you, and you can get the whole of all of it. That's really hard to grasp, isn't it?
oh, it is. And it's funny, like talk about synchronicities. I wrote about that this very afternoon when I was kind of writing up my own little dialogue notes for the Sunday program. But um, I was talking about that very thing, about everything being holographic. Therefore, because I was talking about the consciousness grids that surround the planet, the unity consciousness grid, and the false grid that was created to bring in duality, which is, again, I know this is way off mainstream. But we also have grids within ourselves, right?
Which
Because,
really is the ones out there are the out picturing of what is
right,
in here, right? So,
that's exactly the point that came to mind, was that,
yeah.
if everything's holographic, then yes, the planet has got a unity consciousness grid as well as the false grid that was created to create duality. But
Hmm.
at the same time, we mirror that within ourselves as well. So
Yeah.
therefore, yeah, we have two choices. Which one do we want to go with? Do we want to go with our own unity consciousness grid, or the one that we've been taught, which is
Yeah.
the false grid, which is there to create the duality? And one is kind of heart-based unity, and the other is the duality of the mind,
Mm,
which is all beautiful, right? But we've got to realize that there's a connection to everything. And
yeah.
but again, where you've taken the book, and oh, I tell you, I just got to. This is another thing that really crossed my mind
Mm,
when I was looking at the book again today. Only a couple of weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago now, we did a section which was from Dolores Cannon, one of her books,
hmm.
that was relating to cells, the cells in the body.
Yeah. Hmm.
And the discussion that was going on relative to the cells in the body and how does cells experience life? Well, they have their own, they are their own little mini universe, right? Again, that
Hmm.
holographic thing.
Yes.
Everything has intelligence, everything has a role to play.
Mm,
And it was thinking about cells in this way. And they were talking about the discussion was on things like pandemics and germs.
hmm.
And the voice said that, oh yeah, well, if it was suggesting that germs have got a bad rap over the years because the reality is that our collective consciousness has decided that germs are responsible for disease, whereas
Right. A
the reality,
creation.
sorry,
A creation. One
exactly.
of our creations, right?
Exactly. And medical science has proven it because we've seen it in the labs, we've seen this, and we've all bought into this concept.
Hmm.
But the point was that if you break away from that and you don't believe that to be true,
Yeah.
then it cannot harm you. Now, and again, reading your book,
Yeah.
that came back to me big time because of the COVID thing with your mother, right?
Exactly. That was really, I look back, I had a really tough time. It's hard to talk about that time with a lot of people. For me, having been on the journey and seeing, I just have a little aside because the germ thing, I had an experience, as a lot of it is about just one time I had a couple of clients, sometimes they would be germaphobes and they'd come in my studio and they'd be wiping everything down. I'm like, what are you doing? Like I wipe it down because if there's dirt, but it's not about germs. So you don't need to get
Yeah.
crazy here. And I remember somebody was coughing or whatever, and I remember putting on my hand on something, and there was a thought, "Oh, you should wash your hands." To me, like, and
Yeah.
then my higher voice, which of course right now speaks really pretty much 24/7, says, "What are you saying?" And then I felt like these little germs perceived on me were saying, "What are you calling us germs? We are you." It was
Yeah.
so, but that was an experiential feeling. And I was
Yes.
like, "Of course." So
Yes.
it was kind of an example. So I too, when I was listening to that, I'm like, that's what I was trying to show in the book. It's like, it's made up. These are made up creations of concepts. And if we feed them, we play them. If we don't, we don't. And I just say it was such a litmus test
Mm.
because I didn't know what to do with it, given how I felt. And I tell you, I'm struggling with the spiritual community because I was looking to them to support not even feeding the word. I mean, John, I was deleting the word COVID from every email that came in from my text because I didn't want the energy of the word, right, to be fed. And then I'm
Yes.
looking to the spiritual people and saying, what are you doing? And I don't really, as I said, I didn't have a chance to really speak to them. I didn't know how they were responding. Every now and then heard something and I thought, really? Really? And I did talk to Linda Taggart, by the way,
Oh, did you?
um, because I was taking the course of consciousness evolution at the time. It was playing through Humanity's Team, and you could go on and have you could go on one-on-one, and I happened to go on, and I got to talk to her. But I have to tell you, I had to call her out and say, when she said, COVID is you can help COVID by going to sunlight, and I'm like, I kind of was like, you're the one that wrote the book on thoughts,
Yeah,
even
yeah.
to feed thought, the COVID is a thought. And that's really what I said to her. And at first it kind of stepped back and she like didn't really know what to make of what I was saying.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I think it's just so deep seated and that time was so unusual for us, right?
It was, and that programming was so strong. That
Yeah.
programming was so strong and so all embracing that it became everybody's way of life. And back over in the UK, every Thursday people would hang out of the windows and bang pans together as a mark of appreciation for the National Health Service, who were on the front line fighting this dreaded
Really?
disease. Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh my
And
gosh.
and there would be like daily updates by the Prime Minister, who also got caught COVID. And when he caught it, I think most of us thought, oh, he's going to die then, isn't he? Because it had been so. Anyway, a couple of weeks later, he was right as rain, you know. And you said, hang on a
Yeah.
second, you know, what's this? They started off talking about it like a death sentence, and now you realize it
Mhm.
was just it was an exercise in control, right?
Yeah.
And it helped to awaken a lot of people. So I
Mhm.
think it really did serve a purpose. It also
Oh yeah.
talks to how we were separated and kept a distance away. That
Yeah.
meant that we were less in our energetic fields, right?
Mhm.
And it's a control mechanism. And the fact is that I know a lot of people won't relate to this yet, but they will. If
Yeah.
they roll out another pandemic, I don't think they will now. I think that now the control agenda is really starting to fade, which is why we're seeing so much chaos. But there were definitely plans for the next pandemics as well, and
Yeah.
supposedly a lot worse than the one that's been through. But nevertheless, you know, we can have the power to not even allow it. And to your point,
Exactly.
we can delete it. If we choose
Mhm.
to delete it and not even allow it into our version of reality, it doesn't exist.
Exactly. And then we can do the converse and we can start to feed. What can I do for myself to be in better health? What can I do to nurture myself? And that was the other thing with COVID. What did they do? You know, I, as a runner, would run on the boards late at night. That was my peaceful thing too. They closed the boardwalks, they closed the beaches. I couldn't believe I'm seeing yellow tape on a beach entrance of a place that I go for peace and ever, and it's taped off. It was mind-boggling to me. I'm like, I cannot
Oh
believe
no.
what's happening here. I really sat down and asked my higher voice, could we please accelerate this ascension, because I can't really reside in this. So I think that was part of my asking for the acceleration of this right here.
Yeah.
But at
And
the same time, it also was purposeful. I had to sit in meditation and say, I know and I believe that everything has a purpose. I've got to embrace that there's a reason for this, even though I really, really struggle. I mean, my business was closed. They were closing my business.
yes.
There was a lot of things going on. And they're like, how do I deal with all this? And then, you know, like it just said, you've got to trust. And I look back and I think during that time, I published my book. I went and spoke with the PMA in Nevada. I got my website up and running. I mean, I accomplished more in like 2 years than I've done probably my entire life, not even realizing that it was going to come somehow out of that in however way it played out. So
Mm,
that was interesting. I knew I had to accept it because I trust, you know, even though
yes.
I didn't really know why this was happening. But I can look back now for sure and say, yes, there, for even from in my personal, you know, reality, that played a purpose in a way too. That was like, wow, I just can say I'm so grateful for those times in a way, and what
Mm,
showed up for me. And then now I have an opportunity that I feel like I'm needed. I feel like
yes.
what I'm teaching, what I'm practicing, and I need the time to practice is really needed.
Yeah.
And especially if we start coming into similar situations, if we didn't get the lesson, and I think we probably didn't, a lot of people didn't
A
get the
lot of
lesson,
people, yeah. Yeah.
that we might have an opportunity that we're going to be playing that again. So, you know, I say, hey, you know, that's why, again, you and I, we have an opportunity now to, uh, you know, step in and create a different energy where we can start to deal with these creations, right? These
Yes.
creations, and not allow them to play out like maybe they have previously.
Well, I think we can do better. I think we can take advantage of this
Mm-hmm.
by creating a pandemic of our own. We-
Ah,
The pandemic of higher consciousness
yes.
is highly infectious.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you don't need to keep 2 meters apart. You don't need to keep
Right.
wiping everything down. You're going to look
Exactly.
forward to catching the pandemic of higher consciousness because it's a beautiful thing.
Yes.
So, yeah, but you know, that's the odd thing about it, right? Because if you could actually frame that and say, okay, there is a new bug that's out there. It's all about higher consciousness. And once you catch it,
Yeah.
you are going to start to explore all these divine attributes of who you
Yeah.
are. And you're going to, honestly, you're going to spiral into this. And,
Yes.
if you could get people to believe that, it might just work.
Isn't that why you and I are here, Sid?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Because wherever we focus on, we're creators. And I'll tell you the line that comes to me though, also, which that thing with the germs, and I'll just throw, put this out to you. The female voice, she said something about putting up the field to protect herself from the germs. And he said, did that work for you? And, yes. And yes, well, we could do that because what we believe we're going to create to a certain degree. But there's a line in the back of that always stands up for me, out to me. And it says, if it's not embedded in the truth, it must be uprooted. In other words, something is going to show up again, because if the
Mm,
truth isn't really there, that we are divinity and that germs are a creation, um, that because that still can be said, well, if you want to create the idea of germs and they can hurt you, then go ahead and put up your force field. But you can recognize that you are divine energy and you don't need to feed a sense that there is a germ that could harm you. And I think that's really important, like he said, that we give the choice, which creation do you choose, and what might be the truth of who you are as divinity,
yes.
which is absolutely known the deeper you go within, right? The deeper you go within, you can know and experience yourself that way. And also as a creator of something else, if you wish,
Yeah.
a different experience of yourself, right?
Absolutely. And I think that underlines a very good point as well, which is that everybody is on, we're all individuated expressions of the divine.
Yeah.
Therefore, we all have a right to our own individuated journeys. And
Mm-hmm.
that needs to be honored. So some people are
Yeah.
on a darker path, some people are heading towards the light, and
Mm-hmm.
each are equally valid. But what you have to do is to give people the opportunity, those who could bridge across between the two and choose the light rather than the dark.
Mm-hmm.
We've got to build that bridge, right? So
Yeah.
that they have the choice to walk across it, but
Yeah.
also honoring them if they don't choose to as well, because a lot of people, this will be beyond where they
Yeah.
can actually go. But again, I think so much of this is about planting the seeds, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, being led is very powerful because when I was doing my Magnets of Magnificence, I kind of had changed it a little bit because I realized that being led, I didn't always have that in there. It has been always been very powerful for me because the thoughts, they entertain thoughts that might be covered, deeply covered because of our deep-seated conditioning. And so
Mm,
the path of going within is often, it's a slow one, I think, because there's so much thickness of conditioning. And if we're still living in it, it may not be enough. So when you have others that you're surrounding yourself with, who are, bringing forth the higher vibration, different choices, possibilities of who you are, you'll know it because it resonates with you. And then you have tools, you have something to feed your own self with and surround yourself with instead of the other, which is
mm,
very pervasive. So I think what we're doing is really, really powerful, to expose more and more people to other opportunities of how we see who we are, and encourage them as well to take these practices within,
mm,
meditation, absolutely, because ultimately you need to feel these things for yourself. And you can be led, you can bring the horse to water, but to drink it, you've got to feel it for yourself. Then it becomes real to you. It becomes experiential. It becomes knowing.
yes.
Once you've had the experience, you can say, I know this, even if it's just a glimpse. You
Mm,
can say, I know it. And so I can continue to nurture that
mm,
because you have something, the line is drawing you. You see
yes.
that with a lot more confidence to pursue it.
Yes, yes, the experiential thing is important. And but at the same time as well, and I think you also alluded to this, is that when you read certain things, you instantly know it to be true,
Yeah.
right? You may not have directly experienced it at that point, but at the same time, you always knew this, right? That's the
Hmm.
thing. But
Yeah.
you had, in order to realize that this was part of who you are, you had to take the trouble to research it. But
Yes.
there's an instant knowing that comes with it.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of this journey as well. And we've been so used to being programmed from the outside of like the, from the education system upwards, which is so
Mhm.
fundamentally flawed because
Right.
all it's doing
I
is
know.
kind of guiding us down this dark path that that keeps us small, that
Yes.
this is what, the puppet masters who've been there pulling the strings
Mhm.
all along. Who's created this education course? Well, they have,
Yeah.
right?
Yes,
We have
exactly.
to cut the strings. That's what's happening at the
Hmm.
moment. And then we have to
Yes.
pick ourselves up without the
Hmm.
strings and then realize, actually, the power's within. We never needed the strings in the first place.
Oh, I love that. Yes. Hmm. We
Step
never
into our
needed anything
divinity.
outside of us, really. It's all in here. And then now, are we willing, to make that, to dedicate ourselves, to honor ourselves by taking that awareness? And that's that big word for me, to take that awareness within. And maybe those are the couple things that I wanted to bring out on this journey, because as you said, when you start out, I don't remember the first time I was aware that I was aware from
Mm,
behind. For me, it's from behind my eyes. I remember the first time I think I thought, wow, I just was aware of my breath. Before, I was just sort of like, breathe in, breathe out. Okay, I'm doing it. And then I felt that I was aware that I was doing it. Well, it wasn't really, there wasn't an awareness previously.
mm,
But now I can tell you that this awareness of the me as the observer is 24/7.
mm.
And my channeling of my higher self that sits to me on my right side, that was Sarah Landon too, is 24/7. And
Yeah,
it's probably because I'm embedded in this practice with what I do in 24/7. I don't
yeah,
have a different job that takes me somewhere else. So it's a constant. I'm not channeling a higher dimensional creation of myself or a previous parallel reality, I would say. But I am channeling. I know it's me. My higher voice is guiding me. Oh, what did you just say? That's not accurate,
yeah.
or answers to something that I wasn't sure about what was going on. It comes, that,
Mm,
but it's kind of like there almost, all the time at this point. But this is like a lot of years of filtering out a lot of the thicker stuff. So just to let people know, stay the course, stay the course. It's going to keep getting clear. It's going to get easier. Yeah, I'm still in my conditioning. I always say I'm not levitating yet. Um, Not to levitate, but to know that I can move my energy at will, right? That's really what it's about. I know that's possible because we're practicing it in the studio all the time. Um, and I know others have done it, but our Western culture is a little slow in that. So that's okay. But I guess it's just saying, just keep staying with it. Wherever you are is your timeline, right? But
mm,
there's something beautiful on every step of the way, because
mm.
you're constantly opening up to something more beautiful of you.
Yes,
There's always something more beautiful of you to open up to if you're on the journey of going within.
yes.
And it's enough. It's enough,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and I think that where we are now and where I am, like, and I've just been experiencing this over the last few weeks in particular, is getting more to the fact that we are actually quite magical beings, which again
Mhm.
sounds crazy. It's another layer of crazy. But the
Not to
fact is
me.
that we are going back to, you talk about, okay, you haven't walked on water yet. And bottom line is we can fly, right?
Oh, no
Once
doubt about it.
once we get to that point, we can walk on water, right? I mean, because like Jesus said,
Mhm.
greater things that I've done that you will do, kind of thing.
You will
Or
too.
I'm paraphrasing it, but yeah, it was that, and he meant that because
Sure.
we are that we are aspects of the divine. There is nothing that we cannot do, but we have to connect because this again. I come back to a show we did, I think, last May with RJ Spinner, who's this guy who was very, very sick and pulled himself through it and understood basically what was happening.
Hmm.
And he said that, his connection to his higher self made all the difference because he said that generally, like 2.5% of our knowledge and wisdom sits within the body, and 97.5% sits at a higher consciousness level, at a higher self level. And he said it's kind of, well, no, in fact, this is what we're talking about this weekend as well, just coming up. And again, this is more Bashar kind of stuff, but he talks about the fact that you think of the physical body lives in the valley. The higher self is at the top of the mountain and can see everything.
Mhm.
Therefore, by defaulting, you may feel that you need something. Your higher self knows whether you need that or you don't. So you kind of by defaulting to that, you're getting a wider, broader perspective. And the brain, the physical brain, is designed to perceive, but it's not here to conceive. So everything that's imagination, everything that is, building these things and creating things, that's all from the higher self.
Yeah.
So we have a connection, but it's opening that spigot wider and wider. So as to your point, where this becomes who you are, because it is you.
Yeah.
It's just a
That's the thing.
non-physical you.
Well, that's the thing I say about but that's why I guess for me, I probably wouldn't be describing, I don't usually say your physical body, because to me, it's not my physical body. My body is consciousness. And so I can feel that it would be a lower level of consciousness that would see my body as physical. And I could see that. But at this point, I don't relate to my body as physical. I relate to my body as consciousness, and that there are higher and higher possibilities, because to me, my body is not a limited factor. It is limitless by nature of it as me, as divinity, as consciousness. So that's where, again, I really would reference, for me, when I'm in the studio, we're practicing, I'm telling you, I fly comes from the awareness within of releasing tension. This is where this is my journey that I like to share, because I think it's different from most of what I hear. When, in my experience, when we go inward and we're moving and we're releasing the tension, because usually we move by what? Contracting.
Mm,
So when you understand, as Sarah Landon said, that awareness moves energy, okay, it's taking these principles. Awareness moves energy. This is what's really coming to me now, John, with much more clarity and practice, that my awareness is moving my form field as one. So I have the thought of whether I'm, doing a handstand or coming up into something. It's my awareness that's moving that energy, not the contracting to be strong enough to do it.
mm,
It's very different. You've got to release what's stopping you. There's usually tension somewhere. You're going to exertion because you were taught, because you're taught you're not strong enough. And instead, when you start to contract and you have to let it go and allow your focused thought vibration to resonate as your body as an energy field, you move that energy through your awareness.
mm,
So this fitness thing is not about exertion and stronger muscles. It's about flow of energy and expanding your awareness in your form field. And then you realize that you are one with thought body. The thought vibration resonates as your form vibration, and you are that.
mm,
The focal thought is the experience you're having. If your focal thought is I fly, and that's the only vibrational thought that you are able to hold, you and I will be flying, because we're moving that energy as that vibration. It makes sense.
yeah.
It's kind of like 1 + 1 = 2, but to reach that level of focus,
Mm,
right? And that's in Sarah Landing's book too, focus. The focus is what brings forth, right, that vibration into experience, right, into
yeah.
creation. We're
Yes.
creators. So I just like to put that in, because I think that's so much of what my journey is, and why I tend to, get a little, I don't resonate so much when the physical body is mentioned as the physical body. I just don't see it from that level of consciousness anymore. I don't relate to my body that way anymore.
Mm,
I mean, I still know I'm in limitation, but I know it's because I have stored lower frequency belief systems that are
yes.
still holding me in limitation, but they're transmutable. They are transmutable with higher vibrational thoughts. You see
Yes.
what I mean? And then
Yes.
I get lighter and lighter. I can hold my thoughts longer and longer. And then that's where I fly becomes attainable. And you can taste it
Mm.
as you practice. Does
The
that make
human,
sense?
It does make sense. And
Yeah.
you know, it's all about mastery, isn't it? And it does,
Yeah.
it's a practice and it does take a while because, you know, you
Hmm.
start off from this position of believing the conditioning and programming that we've been fed for a lifetime. And
Hmm.
then you start to realize the fabrications within it, which are extreme. And then, but you could imagine, right? Imagine that given the fact that we're going through this awakening process now, remembering who we really are, you
Hmm.
can imagine, say, I don't know how many years' time, but a child is born into an education system which is really about who we are. You can
Yeah.
imagine. And again, this goes back to say, like even the Atlantis times, and this is my understanding, is that at the times of Atlantis, the children were taught about their psychic abilities,
Yeah.
and they had exercises to. They didn't need cell phones, right?
Right. Exactly.
It was thought to thought kind of thing, and it was they would still have physical language, but they also, you know, so much of it was about the psychic abilities that we all have, but we are told early on, not only do we not have them, but anybody that has them is a little bit crazy,
Exactly.
right?
That's right.
And
Yeah.
and you can tell sometimes when you actually start to go on this journey, you realize what's true by the level of ridicule that gets brought in by
Hmm.
by the media in
Yeah.
order to belittle things,
Hmm.
because that is how they actually suppress things. And
Yeah.
so much of that. But once we get to this new paradigm, once we're through the other side and we realize, to use your word, that we are godlings, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, and then
Yes.
we are told from day one that we are godlings. We are all aspects of God, and
Yeah.
that we all have a role to play in this cosmic jigsaw puzzle. And the joy, what brings you the most joy, is your focus for this lifetime. So let's
It's
find
what
out
you have
what
to
that is.
share. Yes, like we're all just sharing our beautiful divinity with each other. We're all each like a perception of the whole, a unique perception of the whole. And we each have something to share with each other. And you're right. I always say this, Jesus was taught that he was, right? I mean, everybody told him that he was like the savior or whatever he was. What if we were told when we were born like that, like you said, that we were an aspect of God, the Godlings, as you said, and that we create. If we really were taught, so it said that we create with our focused thought. We're creators of experience. We're here for a certain joy for each of us, and we can create that with our focus, and we're here to spread that beautiful love energy that we are. What if we really were taught that and it was nurtured? Well, heaven on earth, right? So
Absolutely. And that's where we're going. That is where
yes.
we're going. And, you know, we're getting there fast because, you know, I do believe that there are two timelines out there that basically
Mhm.
people have a choice over. And that,
Yeah.
you know, the train has not left the station yet. People still have a choice.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people going to begin their journeys over the next year or two because of the level of chaos and disruption that's going to be out there, which is
Hmm.
by design. This is
Yeah.
nothing to be feared. It's actually something to get excited about.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, even though, and this is a little bit controversial, even though maybe a lot of people will leave the planet, so to speak, die,
Hmm.
as we would call it,
Yeah.
because this is part of their journey that they chose before they came here, that this is going to happen. I don't know what this is. X is going to happen, and
Hmm.
a million people will die, right? They chose to be part of that because there is an ascension journey taking place within this. We never die. That's the way I look at it, right?
Well, that's a big point that I was going to say. What do you mean by die? And I think that's something, again, part of when you look now as energy and you look at as eternal, what is death? Because, and what is aging and what is all this stuff that we've created for ourselves as
Hmm.
energy? They're not aspects of this energy. They're just not. Those are creations. Those are creations of experience that we have made, constructed. So, that's when again I just always like to bring it up when I hear say that you're all going to die. It's like, oh, what do you mean by that? Because even aging, I'll look at my skin and my higher voice says you don't need to have wrinkles. That's your constructed, this is the paradigm of your construct, and you're still in that. You
Yeah.
are divine energy. Youth is your divine essence, right? And I get that. I get that because I've changed enough things already that I know that it's changeable. Some beliefs are much more deep seated than others. So
Hmm.
those things are going to be more challenging to shift and change. But I keep saying, you know what? I'm just taking it a step at a time. But the word die just does not resonate with me
No.
whatsoever in terms of, somehow that we age and die, but we are always shifting or potentially shifting our vibration. We come in and out of visibility, or because of whatever range we're in of visibility, we may become invisible to somebody else if we raise our vibration. I get that, absolutely. And
Yes.
I see that happening. So what is death? I think the energy is I feel that it's all around me.
Hmm.
Everybody's resonating at different vibrations, different perceptions, right? Different visibilities, but it's all right here. It's
Mm.
all right here, right now. It's hard to grasp that for a lot of people, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
So
just not something we ever get educated into.
yeah, and then you want to feel into it. So, as I said, I think the more that you go into your body and you feel your energy and you start to feel your lightness, and then your thoughts come to you, that your consciousness, and then you feel this like that you don't have boundaries, then you start to realize, well, how could I die because I'm not that? It's like the constructs start to fall away, right?
Yes,
They just fall away.
they
It's
do.
interesting. It's such a beautiful journey, right?
It's incredible. I mean, I
Yeah.
feel so honored to be on this journey now because I know how important this time is on the planet right now. So to be here, to get to the front
Yeah.
of the queue to be here.
Yeah.
And you could look at, well, it's chaos, and if the other side is paradise, why would you want to be? There's a very good reason for being here. This is an experience. This is kind of, okay, might be a roller coaster of emotions during lifetimes that you don't get when you're on the other side. But at the same,
Yeah.
this is all about soul growth. This is all about the journey. And self-love is kind of like up there. It's like number one. If you can get that resolved, then you can be the best version of yourself for everyone around you.
You brought another zinger again. I wanted to bring up because I love it. See, it all happens as it should be. But that was another note. Self love. What does that mean? And I would only say again, because a lot of me is looking at these where we speak a lot about these things, but what does it really mean to me? And we are there. Our essence, right, is love. It's love is the feel of our own energy. So when you say, well, you've got to love yourself, well, these are things you can't tell people, that you've got to find self love. You've got to feel your energy, and that is self love.
Yeah.
It's like you can't tell somebody you are God. You've got to feel your energy as God. So that's why the journey is our own self journey. The concepts are great and they sound good, but the actual going within, why they keep saying that, you've got to go within because you feel what that really is. That was in my book, like when Pooh said, I go to that quote in my book when Piglet said, how do you spell love? And he goes, you don't spell it, you feel it. And it's
Mm.
really true. So much of this, it has to be felt. And again, that may be why a lot of the masters and the ascended masters don't give us too much. They're not going to do it for us. They know we're here on our own beautiful journey of our own selves to really feel who we really are. And
Mm.
as because it's exciting,
Oh,
right?
I love it.
It really can be really exciting. And not that we don't have moments when we can dip in and like, but I
Oh,
don't know
for
about you,
sure.
my higher voice now says, what are you doing? Snap out of it, not to judge it, but like, I don't have to stay in that. That's a construct. Okay.
Yeah.
Let
Yeah.
me feel into my energy and suddenly I'm back into, oh yeah, I'm feeling
Exactly.
the good stuff
I
again.
mean, ultimately, part of the human experience as I see it is that there is this big emotional spiral that we will feel into. And
Yeah.
and to feel the lower end of that, the descending is not wrong. It can be
No.
appropriate. It can be very appropriate. You just don't want to live your life there, you know?
Well, yeah, there's more, right?
Yeah.
Lower
So,
vibrations, higher
yeah.
vibrations. There's all these vibrations, right? Lower vibration. Except now we've been there, done that. Do you want to stay in it? And I kind of say that too about incarnation. Well, if you've been there and done it, do you really need to do it again? Like, really? I've been there, done that probably a gazillion times. Maybe now I'm looking for something else, right? Another
Yes.
choice, right? So, um,
Yes.
it's kind of cool, isn't it? That there's always more. There's
There is
more.
always more. And
Yeah.
it's a fascinating journey. It's like once you realize that, this is an incarnation that we're going through now. Let's honor it, let's make the most of it, let's have
Yeah.
fun. Because when we're in our joy, this is when we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. It's
Yeah.
not, you don't find joy at the expense of other people, right? That's a completely different emotion. It's
Mhm.
kind of, it's something that is, again, infectious, right? We come back to that pandemic of higher consciousness idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
When, there's no point in having somebody who is going to be an example or a light bearer for the community around them unless your vibrational frequency is emitting that high
Yes.
frequency energy, and people can see that you are enjoying life, and that
Hmm.
that's something that we all aspire to. I mean, all I've done really over these last few years is stand on the shoulders of giants to work out what really is going on.
You're doing your part, John, beautifully. I can tell you that right now, or I
Thank
really
you. Thank
wouldn't
you.
be
And
here with
and
you.
as indeed are you, Linda. And again, we know that these things are synchronicities that we connect up to talk about this kind of work, because I
Mm,
know that what we're talking about here is just the beginning of a series of interviews that we're going to do to talk about your book and about your work, because I want to go deeper into this.
yeah.
But we need to break this down into bite-sized chunks so that
Yeah.
people can digest it, and then
Mm,
we can move on to the next thing. And
yeah.
I think so. Let me to in order to let's what last thought would you want to share with us before we'll go into sharing about how to get the book, where to get the book, and things like that?
I guess just in sort of following up what you said, what I feel that I bring a little differently, with relationship to starting to open up to seeing our form field differently and looking at the cultural construct of fitness, of working out, of contracting, that it perhaps is one of our greatest disempowerments right now, because the flow of our energy is the higher consciousness. It's the higher. And so if we are blocking the flow of that energy through being taught to contract, and now we have tension through lower frequency thoughts, right? Fear and worry and anxiety, so prevalent. That's a source of our constriction, right?
Hmm.
And then we have the idea that when we move, we contract because we've been taught that. So that's become natural to us. And then we might go to the gym to work out to contract more. We're really keeping ourselves very disempowered. So that
Mm.
probably is a message that's what in my studio, it's all about awareness within, to release and to move through awareness, through focused thought. And then you can feel the flow of your energy, because again, it all takes care of itself. Once you feel the flow of your energy, your ahas come. You
Yes.
feel yourself as that consciousness. It's not something that you can be taught. You can be guided, but ultimately, you have to feel it for yourself. So I hope to play a role in that, and start to shift us really out of a big cultural paradigm of this contracting, even what that is, and the tension that we hold, becoming much more aware of it and learning to let that go, because it's going to take care of everything else.
Yes.
It just is. That's where allowing comes in. When we're free, we can
Yeah.
allow our own higher self to just run the show. That's
It's
pretty
very
cool,
true.
isn't it? It
That's
really
amazing.
is.
And it's kind of, to your point, that when you can actually embrace these concepts, what you find is that you get taken over by a deep feeling of inner peace. And inner peace is a beautiful thing relative to that tension and anxiety and deadlines and all this other
Mhm.
focus of that we've been taught for a lifetime,
Yeah.
right? We have to do this unlearning thing.
Mhm.
That's why what you're talking about resonates so strongly with me, because I think that this is going to be the way of the future. And I think that, again, your connection to your higher self is effectively, it's like a channel work. It's just which is where the best work comes from, right? Because it
Yeah.
doesn't come from the 2.5%, the brain being the receiver rather than the perceiver rather than the creator of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that connection has led to this, which I think is a fantastic book.
Mm. I'm
Um,
so glad. I can't tell you, for me, I just have to tell you, how grateful I am because, putting forth something like that book, as you probably know, John, the journey, it's not well received or even received, by many. Because again, it's the journey. And I put a lot in that book that, from where I have come from, and it's been years, right, of my life's journey and
mhm.
coming into this and to want to share it, wanting to put the stories in just to open people's eyes up. But again, there aren't that many people in my personal life, right, that I can, connect with like this. That's why I'm so grateful. As I said, my clients are great. They listen, you
Mm,
know, and they love, and their eyes are open. And I'm so grateful to that. But there are people that it's different when you're connecting to them, when they're able to receive this information, at a higher level of consciousness, because then there's a
yes.
different receiving of it. And I can't tell you how grateful I am for that, because as you know, to share in this is really exciting. That's why, as I said, I just can't thank you enough for
Thank you.
that and giving me that opportunity to do
No,
that.
absolutely. And you know what you say again, I think we have a journey ahead of us, which, I would love to think you're going to be a big part of this elevated planet journey because I can see us doing retreats, workshops, this, that, and the other,
Mm,
all these different aspects of which this could be an enormous part of this as well.
mm,
um,
sounds
because
wonderful.
everybody has these areas of expertise because that's what we're
Hmm.
here to do, right? We're
Yes,
not here to
yes.
be a master of everything.
No, we have our uniqueness, right?
We have our uniqueness in it, and
Uniqueness.
that
Yes,
diversity is a strength, not a weakness, right? It's just
absolutely.
once you've tapped into that and you can spread that knowledge and that joy so that other people can share that as well, which is why we've created that WhatsApp group recently, and we're going to include
Mm-hmm.
a link on that to this video as well as
Mm-hmm.
to your own website, Linda. We'll make sure that's on there. Just tell us what the website is.
www, right, Carden, Carden, cardenconnect.com. Yeah, and there's some videos in that website too. They're neat. That's also where people can purchase the book also, aside from Amazon, and I think Amazon and Balboa Press, but
Mm,
also on the website too. So
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, this is just part of the journey, and I'm glad that we're building this community now because I've had the same thing from others around the world as well, saying exactly the same thing,
Mm,
connecting with people who actually get it at this point. Now, yeah, absolutely, we want to reach out. We want to reach out and help people across that bridge who are
yeah.
ready for the journey.
Hmm.
But it's not about pushing people, you know, everybody.
Dragging people over the finish line,
Yeah,
as Cher
dragging
says, right?
people kicking and screaming out. It's
I
not
know, right?
that. Everybody is
Exactly.
respected for their own journeys, and
Hmm.
some people are destined not to be on the higher timeline, and that is perfectly fine because they are where
Exactly.
they need to be. But for
Hmm.
those who are, have the possibility of stepping up and stepping across the bridge onto this higher timeline, wow. I mean, what a
Wow.
celebration that is for all of us.
It
So
is.
let's do
Yeah.
this. Let's pull it all
I
together
know.
and start to make plans. And it's
That's
exciting.
what you're here for.
Yes.
Because you're really the facilitator of this, you're really pulling all this together, right? As they
I'm
said so
excited.
beautifully. So I'm
I'm truly,
excited.
I'm
Yeah.
excited for this journey, and I'm honored to be able to talk to you about the work that you're doing with your specific outlook on these things. And I totally get it. I totally
Oh.
get the journey of unlearning, so we can
Mm.
learn what it's really all about. Is what's happening right now. So don't worry, everybody, about the chaos because that is exactly what is supposed to happen. It's
All
a
right.
grand, organized design. Right.
Hmm.
That's what's
It's all
happening.
part
A
of
GOD, a grand
it.
organized design.
I love that. Yes. And it's all coming undone as it needs to. And I love that I'm learning. There was the book called The Fox, the boy, the fox, the wolf, or whatever. And there's a line in there where I think the mole asks, or the boy asks the mole, "Is there a school for unlearning?" And I always said, "Yes, my studio." Because we're coming in there and we're undoing all of this cultural stuff, right? So the fact that you're saying that is a pretty typical phrase in our studio. We're in a school of unlearning. So
Mm.
It's kind of funny how that is.
Yeah, I did spend, I did a few workshops at the School of Unlearning last year in London, which is one which was run by a gentleman called Rory Duff, who is thankfully on the road to recovery because he's been through his own personal battles just recently. But he's
Mm.
an amazing guy, and he's teaching us a lot of truths on based on his specific journey as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, he has all these holds all his workshops at the School of Unlearning.
There you go. Yeah, we
The
kind of
road
get that now, right?
is -1 on the road as well as the doorway. The School of Unlearning. It's
It's
a nice one,
adorable.
Rory. Appreciate you.
There you
Okay.
go.
All
Mm.
right. Well, thank you, Linda. Really
Thank
appreciate
you.
that. We
Mm.
look forward to getting this information out there, and there will be a sequel. There'll be more sequels on this than Police Academy. So, there's
Good.
a lot to look for.
I'm so looking forward to it. And again, I'm so grateful to, for you and for the opportunities that we can share all this together. So
Yeah,
thanks
for
again,
sure.
John. Mm.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Linda. And thank you to all those who watch this
Mm.
video on YouTube. Do come and join our community. There is a link to the WhatsApp that you can just come along and join in and see if it's for you. Or drop me an email to johndrew@elevatedplanet.life if you want to go on our email distribution list and be part of that as well. You'll all be exceptionally welcome. So,
Mm.
anyway,
Great.
thank you again, Linda.
Thank you, John. Have a wonderful trip. Enjoy your
Thank you.
daughter and everything that goes with it there.
Truly
Enjoy.
appreciate it.
All
All
right.
right. And catch up with you again soon.
Sounds
Thank you very
great.
much.
Have a good
Bye
night.
all.
Thank you.
Bye.